I'm good to go when you guys are.
All right, we need a cold opening. So, hello, welcome to the video. Kaiir Elam's the greatest corner ever. Okay.
I have COVID.
Nick is slowly.
It gets down bad.
That's why I'm not haven't shaved.
Welcome to another episode of Boom or Bust, the draft show. Max Chadwick alongside Nick Merriam and Donny Clemons doing our top 10 cornerbacks in the 2022 NFL draft. Before we start the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications. Be sure to follow our TikTok, Twitter, Instagram at Boom or Bust Draft. We're on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcast to. And check out the merch store. And also, this episode is presented by WinView, the best thing to happen to sports since fantasy. Gone are the days where all you can bet on are spreads, over-unders, money lines, player props. With WinView, you can bet on singular events live during games. Like, will this at-bat be a strikeout? Will Steph Curry hit this three-pointer? A lot like that. And it's very, very fun. You can make bets like these and more with the WinView app. You can play for free for fun or enter cash prize contests against other users. All you have to do is answer props before and during the game. It's so easy, and all you have to do is sign up. Is click the link that is in our description or in our pinned comment if you're watching on YouTube. Become a part of the new way to bet on sports today with WinView. So our top 10 corners in the 2022 NFL draft, and Nick starts off at number 10 corner.
See, this is a guy who's kind of emerged recently, I think, in the draft discussion. It's Zyon McCollum, a corner from Sam Houston State, which is probably why he slipped beneath the cracks, is because Sam Houston State obviously is not FBS team. They're FCS. A good school. I mean, they play high competition there in D1A, is what I like to call it instead of F. Because I think it's confusing when you say FCS, FBS. D1A team. And he was good. He reminds me a lot of a guy that Max actually fell in love with last year, Zach McPherson. And similarly, a guy who's going to test very well, comes out 100th percentile athlete. And I have the 40 time here too. Is 4'3" guy, 6'2", 200 pounds, long wingspan. So he's just a very big athletic corner. Kind of what I think a lot of people thought Kaiir Gordon was going to end up being, except for Kaiir Gordon didn't run the 40 time that we were hoping he was going to, as we'll talk about later in this video. McCollum did. So he's peak measurables. Like, you're not going to get any better than Zyon McCollum. The thing you worry about, of course, is competition level at Sam Houston State. But a lot of the things I think he does will translate. He is a physical zone corner. He's a guy you're going to see wall off his outside receivers a lot. He's a guy who can get involved in the box. He plays some slot. I don't think he overly relies on his athleticism, which is something that I think a lot of times we get concerned with these types. It's like, oh, he's just an athlete who needs to develop. I think Tariq Woolen is one of those corners who's just an athlete who's not really a corner right now and needs to learn how to play the position. This is a guy who has the length, size, and athleticism, and it's not his whole game. Like, he will get involved in the run game. He's a good tackler, in my opinion. He's one of the better tacklers, I think, actually in this class. I think he has more long speed than short area quickness, so he will allow receivers to kind of gain leverage upfield, and he can catch up and has the range, a la kind of a Sauce Gardner, the way he plays, although his thing is more about length. The versatility is interesting to me. I think he's more developed than most of these athletic corners you see are. But to be quite frank, the issues with him are going to be competition level, and then the fact that he's kind of played a weird spot in that defense. Like, he's not always the outside corner, so I don't know what he's going to be at the NFL. And then also, they just don't throw the ball as much in D1A or as well at all. Like, you're not going up against great QBs, so obviously the translation in the NFL is difficult. You don't see a lot of D1A corners really make it in the NFL, but this is a guy that I think has as good a case as any, and I have a high third-round grade on him right now.
I have not watched him, so I guess I'll have to check him out. It's also going to be impossible to find tape of him because the school. So hopefully we can find some of that eventually. But number 9 on the list is Marcus Jones, the corner from Houston. Marcus Jones is a slot. He's a slot corner. You don't want to put a 5'8" corner in the outside. That's the last thing you want to do because Marcus Jones is really, really small. Probably the smallest corner I think I've ever seen. I don't remember the last time I've scouted a corner who could go day 2. Like, Marcus Jones will probably go day 2. I'd imagine. Maybe the very beginning of day 3, but I think he'll probably go late 3rd round. So he'll go around that same range. I've never really seen a corner that small that will go day 2 before. So that's interesting to see. But like I said, he's a slot corner in the NFL. You don't want to throw him on the outside. And there's roles for slot corners in the NFL. We saw it last year with Elijah Molden. We also saw it with Aaron Robinson. Like, you need slot corners in the NFL, especially with the emerging rise of Cooper Kupp being so dominant in the slot and having arguably the greatest wide receiver season of all time, living in the slot with Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford.
And worth noting, like, there was a graphic pulled up in one of their playoff games, and they're like, here's the corners he's gone against, and they're all slot corners. And it's just, you realize that, like, teams don't have good slot corners.
No, they don't. Yeah, like, literally, like, that's why I'm happy that the Cardinals have a good slot corner, because Byron Murphy is a good slot corner. Yeah, like, one and listen, Byron Murphy's fine, but he's not fantastic. Like, he's fine. He's just a really good slot corner. And in the first time he played the Rams, he had a really good game against him, to Cooper Kupp standards, I should say, anyway, for that season. But also, something I haven't mentioned, phenomenal returner. Might be the best returner in this draft. So if he doesn't, like if he doesn't work at slot, which I think he's going to, because I think he's put up fantastic numbers at Houston, like, if this guy, and I know this is kind of like a weird thing to say, but if this guy was taller, like, he probably would be one of the top corners in this draft, in my opinion. I think he has really good tape at slot corner, but it's just the size concerns. But like I said, if he doesn't work at slot corner, he can be a great returner for you. And we've seen plenty of value with that in the NFL. Teams are trying to find return people, trying to find the next, Devin Hester, Cordell Patterson, someone like that. So you're going to get value with that in the 3rd round if you take him there, but he could be taken early for it. So I do personally like Marcus Jones, CB9 for me right now. He's small, but I think he could be down the line one of the best slot corners in the NFL.
Yeah, I think he's a very, very good slot corner. He plays bigger than his size, like not at the catch point. Like that's where you see his size.
No, not at the catch point.
But he's like a very physical player. Like he's willing to stick his nose in there and help out in the run game. And yeah, you mentioned Donnie. He had 3 punt return touchdowns and 6 kickoff return touchdowns. Like he was the best returner, not only in this draft, but in college football. And that is going to be a very valuable asset for a team next year because he's your starting punt returner and kick returner day 1 in the NFL. Day one, I think it is undervalued a little bit. And I think he will be a good enough slot corner to be good.
A rare skill set nowadays.
Exactly.
It is, yeah. And most of the time you find that in wide receivers. Like, you don't really find that in corners. That the only, like, big-time returner that I can think of that played corner in recent years was Desmond King in 2018. Like, that's the only time I can really think of a corner who is that good at returning.
Like, you don't find like these guys. Patrick Peterson was an elite returner at one point. Yeah, early in his career. But yeah,
definitely not anymore.
No, not anymore. All right, number 8 on our list is Mississippi State corner Martin Emerson. He's kind of had a weird draft journey, I would say, because in the summer before the season started, we were like putting this guy as like a late first round pick, would say. Like he's one of like the top 5 or 6 corners in this class. And then now he's kind of like, while he still played pretty well, like he's kind of dropped on a lot of people's boards. People just kind of forgotten about him. Like he's one of the most forgotten about corners, I think, in this class. And now he's like a 3rd round pick for a lot of people. I still like Martin Emerson a lot. I have him personally at CB7 right now. I think he's a very, very good physical corner. Mississippi State, I also don't think utilized him as much or in the role that he should be utilized in. And I want this guy in like press zone coverage because I think his length, he's 6'2", is pretty darn good. And I think that is the role you want him in, but he barely played any press coverage at Mississippi State. So you could say, hey, his tape wasn't as good, mainly because, he wasn't utilized properly. And, the Charles Cross thing too. Like Charles Cross was a damn good run blocker, but they didn't run the ball that much. So you couldn't really see it as much for Charles Cross. So Mississippi State, I don't know. I just didn't love the way he was used there. I think he's a very, very patient corner. He plays really, really well. He's a very physical corner, sometimes overly physical. Like a lot of times there's no illegal contact in college football, which a lot of corners take advantage of. And then it's kind of a rough transition to the NFL because, as we all know, they call illegal contact a lot in the NFL. And you're not going to be able to get away with the plays that you make in college. But I think he's really, really good attacking the catch point with that elite length. He's not the fastest. He tested out as an 85th percentile athlete, which is not bad at all. But he ran like a 4.53. So this is very much like a bigger corner with okay speed at the position and okay explosion and pretty decent agility. But this is a guy, I don't know if you want him guarding man coverage. I think you want this guy more in a zone coverage because of how smart he is and how physical he is. And like I said, put him in press coverage more because I think he is going to be good there in press coverage. And Mississippi State, utilize him a lot in off coverage, was really the one place I don't want him at the NFL. I don't want this guy playing off coverage in the NFL because I think his length is by far his biggest skill set right now. So I'm a big fan of Martin Emerson. I think he's being a little bit slept on, maybe like a late second round pick for me right now. He's a guy who wins with the size right now. And I think in the NFL, in press zone coverage, which they're running a lot of zone coverage in the NFL, Martin Emerson will work for a lot of teams.
So at number 7 on our list, we have Kaiir Gordon, the corner from Washington. So I kind of just accepted the fact that all Washington corners are just good at football at this point in my life. I think I've just got to accept this at this point. I feel like they're an underrated DBU school. Like every time they have a top prospect, like it's rare that they fail. It really is rare that they're just bad in the NFL. Like Byron Murphy, he's decent. Elijah Moore, decent.
Elijah Molden, yeah.
Elijah Moore, not Elijah Moore. That's
Marcus Peters too, yeah.
Yeah, Marcus Peters, Buda Baker, and now Kaiir Gordon on the list. Like, there's a lot of there's a lot of good Washington. Yeah, Tara. There's a lot of good Washington DBs that just kind of work in the NFL.
We'll see. They fired their head coach, though. Jimmy Lakes was like a DB savant, and he got into some trouble. So we'll see how they are after this year.
We'll see how they
He was like one of the best defensive back coaches in the nation, and now he's...
Yeah, we'll see how they are after. But, no, so I like Kaiir Gordon. I think he can play both man and zone coverage. Something else I've noticed, do not line this guy up against speedy or twitchier wide receivers. That's the last thing you want to do. This guy is just absurdly strong for his size. He's about 6 feet tall, maybe a little bit under, maybe 5'11" and a half, but somewhere around there, about 6 feet tall, good size, decent length. And we kind of mentioned it earlier. He ran a slower 40 than we originally thought than we expected, because he tested fantastically. He tested like 97% athlete, which is great. It's unbelievable. And that's mainly just because of his jumps, because those jumps were just absurd and his 40 time wasn't really ideal. But this is a guy that's just super strong. You want him guarding, I think, bigger physical wide receivers and also possibly tight ends. I think that's kind of what you want with this guy. Versatility also, can play in the slot, can play on the outside. I feel like most Washington DBs just are kind of natural with that. We'll get to one later that's basically the same way with that. But I do like Kaiir Gordon at the end of the day. He is a bit slower for the position, so you want this guy going up against bigger physical wide receivers or tight ends, even though I wouldn't really say he's going to be locking down tight ends probably because they're just so much bigger than him. His jumping ability is going to make up for it because he tested so absurdly, and it also shows up on tape. So I do like Kaiir Gordon. I think he's a mid-second round pick.
Yeah, his agility drills were also like fantastic. Like
it's just the speed. Like it's just and even on tape, like I don't know about you guys. To me, he seemed a little bit slow on tape. Just a little bit.
Yeah, 4.52 is not great. He also had like 20 reps on the bench.
He's absurdly strong.
He did awesome in everything else besides the 40, really.
Yeah,
pretty much. The number six, yes. Yep. Number 6 corner on our board is Andrew Booth Jr., who Donnie and I both have 5th on our boards. Max a little lower at 8. I'll give him a chance to talk about in a second. We've kind of been lower on him for a while. None of us, I think, have had like a clear first-round grade on him. Maybe Donnie does. I'm not certain on that. But some people are really high on this guy. It started out this year. Some people had him as a top 5 player. I think that's kind of dropped off. He's, for some people, still top 20 player. I could see it, the upside. There's a lot of projection here. A guy who's a 5-star recruit, has the pedigree, has athleticism. Not the fastest guy, but the thing everybody keeps talking about is how impressive his feet are. You can see them constantly chopping. And he's just kind of got this nasty style of play. He is vicious for a corner. Like, the way I kind of describe him is like he's a safety who's playing corner, and he's able to do it. Mostly because of his footwork and his ability to mirror receivers, and he has really good patience against those more intricate routes. He kind of has this baseline of being able to deal with quickness and strength, I think, as a receiver. If you're going up against a more physical receiver, he can deal with it because he's strong as an ox. If he's going up against these quicker receivers who run these intricate routes, he has the footwork to deal with that. So those two things combined, even he could like go up against, I don't know, I can't really think off the top of my head right now of a receiver that's really good, like really physical, but also really quick. But like maybe Devontae Adams, who's really not that fast, like you might have a good baseline against that type of receiver for him at the next level. But what I think he struggles is speed. I don't think he's that fast. And I don't know that just one guy who's just fast is going to give him trouble. But if you have speed and strength or speed and quickness, whether it's like a Tyreek Hill who's speedy and he's quick, or a DK Metcalf who's huge and can run, that could give him some issues because he's not really used to dealing with these kind of straight line speedy guys. He has to give a lot of cushion when he's going up against that. And even then, he's not really rangy. Like, he's not really catching guys on the back end. I think a bonus with him is that he's going to be a really good nickel blitzer if you want to use him for that. And in fact, I would try to get him involved in the slot because of that and because of his footwork. I mean, he can probably deal with Cooper Kupp type routes, those more intricate routes, because of his footwork. So this is a guy that I think gets moved a lot early in his career. We try to figure out where he goes, and has a really interesting projection to being maybe a very high-end corner. I also think there's a situation where the speed thing comes back to bite him, as we're seeing the game just get faster. Faster corners are becoming very important. I think that's the thing that's going to hurt Kyler Gordon's projection as well, as we just talked about him. Booth obviously hasn't tested. Or not obviously, maybe we know that, but he hasn't tested. I'd be interested to see what he would do if he were to. But I personally believe his 40 time would probably be like a 4.46 or something like that, which is not excellent. But that's going to be the knock against him. And for me, like, I kind of believe in speed. You know, if you're a first round, if you want to be a first round corner, you have to run at least like a 4.42 these days. Like, it's kind of the way it is.
I'd agree.
Yeah, 5-star recruit. I probably am too low on Andrew Booth Jr. I probably have to go back and raise him a little bit on my board because Clemson plays a very heavy zone scheme, and I don't think that's where he wins. I think he's more of like a man corner in the NFL. So again, like Martin Emerson, who's kind of like misused, I think, at Clemson. Very physical player. I agree with you, Nick, but like he did miss a lot of tackles on tape, which is something I didn't love. I just think his awareness overall, it's something that I struggled with a lot. And there were some games, I remember that NC State game this year, especially, where I think Emeka Azumkama, I believe is how you say his name, he like destroyed him the entire game. It was unbelievable, and that was the game. I was like, damn, like Andrew Booth Jr. Like I'm not sure about him being like a top, 15 pick like a lot of people have him as, and I don't know. I think Andrew Booth Jr. is good. I think he's got a very high ceiling, but there's so many games on his tape that I despise.
NC State.
That NC State game was awful, and I don't know. I think he's a high ceiling guy. I'm afraid of that floor. And really, having him at 8 right now is probably too low, like I said before. But also, like, I love the top 7 that I have right now. Like, this is a damn good top 7 that I have. And it's fantastic. And I think Andrew Booth Jr. is like he's a guy that like would be in my top 5 easily for like almost every other draft. Just this year's like top 7. I'm in love with, and it's tough for him to. It's tough for me to like put those concerns past it and move him above other guys on this list just because I think the top 7 is all really, really good.
I honestly think all 10 of the guys we're talking about this video could start day one.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I think this cornerback class, like, I think it's just super top heavy. But this corner class is ridiculously top heavy. I think it does fall apart pretty quick, though. Like, I think once you get to about CB11, it falls apart fast.
Yeah,
maybe
that's fair.
CB10.
Well, that's most
like some
classes. There's that's like most classes though. Where you're like after the top 10, you're like, all right, now.
Yeah, it's still. I would argue this is probably still the second best position in this draft behind edge rusher. So it's still a very
up
good
there.
corner.
It is very much up there.
It's
This defensive class, like the safety class we're gonna get to later, is awesome. Like I can't remember safety class is this good. Like I legit have like 3 safeties in my first round right now, which is unreal. All right, so let's go to our number 5 corner in this class, and that is Roger McCreary, another guy who's been falling off boards a little bit. And the reason why he's falling down boards is because he has horrible length. Like, literally, you look at it right now, 0 percentile length right now. He has 28 and 7/8 inch arms. That is the second shortest ever measured in combine history. His wingspan is 70 and 5/8 inch his wingspan, and that's first percentile. Like, very, very short arms, which matters. For a guy who's going to be playing a little bit press coverage, like, you want to have longer arms. The reason why I still like Roger McCreary is he dominated the SEC. Like, he just straight up was, I think, the best. He was
the best corner in college football.
He was the best corner in college football this year, and not even this year. Like, you go back last year or 2 years ago, even the 2019 tape, and he went up against Jamar Chase, and he had some really, really good reps against Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. He actually had a pick when Joe Burrow was throwing Jamar Chase. So I really think he's really good. I think he's a guy who's been, tested a lot in the SEC too. He's very, very good at the catch point, even though he doesn't have the longest arms. You don't really see that too much. Really, really fluid as well. I think he's a guy who might be pushed into the slot because teams might be worried about that arm length. So maybe he could be like that slot man corner because Auburn ran a lot of press man corner in the SEC, and that makes you feel a little bit better about his arm length. When you're running that much press coverage in the SEC, in man coverage, and he's got that short of arms, yes, but he dominated. So there's something to be said for that. And I think, too many people are seeing the arm length and automatically dropping this guy so far down their boards where you got to go back to the tape. And Roger McCreary put some damn good tape, not only this year, but over his entire career. I think he's such a savvy football player overall. I don't think he's got great eyes right now. He's got decent athleticism. He tested out 55th percentile, which is not what you want to see. He had really bad jumps, honestly. That's where it killed him, was his jumps, his vertical 31.5 inches, and his broad jump was 9 feet 8 inches. Where it wasn't too good. Ran a 4.5 42, which is not too great. So overall, he's a pretty average athlete. This is really a tape guy for me, though. This is a guy who you look at the athleticism and you look at the arm length and all the measurables, and you say, this guy, I'm not touching him. And you go back and watch the tape, and you're like, this is one of the best corners in this draft. And that's where I think Roger McCreary is. Obviously, you have to combine the athleticism, you got to combine the length and everything into your tape as well. But do not forget how good this guy's tape was. And his tape was fantastic. And he's still a guy who might be a first-round pick at the end of the day for me. Very high floor corner, I think. Just has so much experience in the SEC. And I don't know. I'm a big fan of McCreary. And I think he's a guy who's being a little bit slept on right now. And he will probably be one of the biggest steals of the draft for me, just because I see this guy falling to mid-second round now because teams are going to be that afraid of his length.
I mean, yeah, I was literally just about to say, this guy's probably going to be one of the biggest steals of this draft because of the length and the athleticism isn't necessarily ideal, because if you want to be a good cornerback in today's NFL, you need to have athleticism. It's just the truth. There's a reason that corners regress faster than any other position on an NFL roster, and it's because you need athleticism to keep up with young wide receivers. So that's why, a good example, Richard Sherman and Patrick Peterson just fell off the face of the planet after one season. Richard Sherman in 2019, you can make an argument maybe the scheme really benefited him, but then in 2020, Richard Sherman was just awful. He was just bad. So corners regress at a young age, and most of the time they break out late too, so it's really unfortunate. But yeah, the Combine did it for me, though. The Combine is the reason why I did put Booth over McCreary. I think they're right next to each other on my board. I don't know if either of them. I don't think I will have a first-round grade on either of them. But what I will say is that both of them should be high second-round picks. And if they're both taken at if the Lions take him at 32, either of them, or if the Chiefs take either of them at 30 or 29, I'm fine with it because they need him bad enough, so I'm fine with it. So next on our list is actually the best corner in this class, if we're being honest, and that is Kaiir Elam, the corner out of Florida. So I compare this guy to me kind of like J.C. Horn light. So he isn't the athlete that J.C. Horn is, and he isn't necessarily the player J.C. Horn was, because I thought J.C. Horn was CB1 last year. Obviously, that's a hot take. I get it. If you have to tan over him, that's fine. I get it. It was a hot take. But I love J.C. Horn, and I think Kaiir Elam is kind of the light version of him. Not as high of a ceiling, probably not as high of a floor either, but he's a physical, man-pressed corner with great ball skills who gets grabby, and for some reason, people view that as a weakness. I hate to break it to you. If you're a man-pressed corner, you're going to be grabby. That's just what man-pressed corners are. So I don't know why people view that as oh my gosh, he's too grabby, he's going to get penalized. All corners are grabby. All of them are, so whatever. But actually tested way better at the Combine than I thought. Tested as, I believe, I have it here, an 86th percentile athlete, which is a lot better than I thought it would be. I thought it'd be in the 60s, honestly. I was not expecting him to test in the 80s, and he tested in the mid-80s, so I was super happy about that. Also, maybe some effort issues with him as well. Kind of his better seasons, I'd argue, was his freshman year and then also his sophomore year. This year definitely took a down year this year, but I've always had the mindset that if you're a top 5 pick, and he wasn't top 5 pick, but if you're going to be a top half pick, during the beginning of the draft process, and that, and unless you have such a bad season, like a Sean Wade season or like a Dylan Moses season or Marvin Wilson season, what's the point on trying so hard just to get injured? Like, there's that serious risk. Like,
He
I
did
don't
get
know.
hurt. He missed 3 games this year,
Yeah,
too.
and he did get hurt as well. I did know that. I had it right here. He did miss a couple games, but what's the point on possibly getting and having a severe injury that would drop you maybe out of day 2? Like, it's just not worth it. So that's why the whole, like, there's another corner in this class we'll get to later. Everybody knows who he is that also has some hip issues. Like, I don't really think it's that big of a deal. Like, if you're going to be a top pick and you know you will be, what's the point on trying just to get injured? So I don't know. I do like Kaiir Elam a lot, though, to wrap it up. I think he's a great man-press corner. Keep him away from zone because he will be absolutely useless in zone.
Yeah.
I actually saw a stat saying out of the top 7 on this list, he had the lowest or the highest passer rating allowed in zone coverage, and I believe it was 141. So keep him out of zone for me, please. But no, I love him as a man-press corner. Great ball skills. Just keep him away from zone, and I think he can be a true lockdown corner. And in my opinion, I take him top 15. I know that's crazy, but I would take him top 15. I think he's
CB3?
special. CB3 for me. Yep, CB3.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, the effort concerns, I don't know. I kind of disagree with you, Donnie, a little bit. Like, I think it's tough, like, when saying, oh, like, what's the point? Because then, like, what's the point when you go to, like, a bad team? You know, like, Derek Stingley Jr. and Sauce Gardner are going to be going to, like, the Jets and the Giants. Like, they could say, they're not making the playoffs anyway. Like, why should I even try? Like, I don't know. I guess that's a dangerous game, I think, when you're talking.
That's also true. That's fair.
All right, number 3 on our list is the second of Washington corners, and it is Trent McDuffie.
Future Cardinal.
I mean, you would love that. I mean, he is awesome. Like, Trent McDuffie is this guy who such a smart football player. His awareness, I think, is fantastic. Like, I love Trent McDuffie's awareness, especially in zone coverage. Like, this guy is always looking at the quarterback, always looking at the receiver, not looking at the quarterback too much, though. He is such a smart football player, and his acceleration is awesome. Like, so you have a combination of, like, he's kind of like the Nakobe Dean when we talk about that for Nakobe Dean, where it's like he's going a million miles an hour, but also, like, his awareness is so good that he's never out of control. That's what Trent McDuffie is, too. Like, he is going a million miles an hour, but you never see him, like, out of control and missing plays because of it. Such a smart football player, such a great effort on his tape, too. Like, his tackling is awesome. I mean, you see these Washington corners, like Jimmy Lakes. You can say what you want about him. Like, obviously, he got into some trouble, but say what you want. But, like, he coaches them up, and he says, hey, if you can't tackle or if you're not even willing to tackle, you're not playing. Elijah Molden was an awesome tackler. You see Kyler Gordon, I think, is a very good tackler. Trent McDuffie sticks his nose in the run game as well. I am such a big fan of Trent McDuffie. His change of direction ability is fantastic. The weaknesses, though, he doesn't have the longest arms. And it's another reason why he's maybe falling down some boards for some teams. And, he's, 29.75-inch arms. Again, like, below 30 inches. Like, that's when you start saying, okay, I don't know if this will work. So I don't think you ever want this guy in press coverage. Like, I think this guy you really want in off coverage a lot. Right now, he's a top 15 player on my board, my number 3 corner in this class. And my comparison for him was like Casey Hayward Jr., another guy who played a lot off coverage.
I love that.
Just was a good athlete. And, I'm such a big fan of Trent McDuffie. Another thing that I love about Trent McDuffie is that I think you can put this guy on the outside and he could succeed. Put him in the slot, he'll succeed. Or put him at free safety. I've seen a lot of Trent McDuffie at free safety, and I don't hate that. And Casey Hayward Jr., another guy who played some slot, played on the outside, help put him back at safety if you need to, succeeded everywhere. That's where I think Trent McDuffie is. He is such a versatile player, whereas a guy later on, we're going to talk about Derek Stingley Jr., outside only. Do not put that guy in the slot. For the love of God, do not put that guy in the slot. Put him on the outside. But Trent McDuffie's a guy where I think you just draft him in there. If some teams are going to say, oh, we only need a slot corner, so maybe Marcus Jones we like. Or some teams be like, we only like an outside corner. We only need an outside corner so we can take Derek Stingley Jr. Trent McDuffie is, if you need a corner, as a slot corner, outside corner, free safety, he's a guy you can fill any role that you want of him. And is a very, very good player. Obviously, the length is a concern with Trent McDuffie, but otherwise, I think he's a fantastic football player. Is good in man or zone coverage, in my opinion. And I would take this guy pretty high, 95th percentile athlete too. Big fan of Trent McDuffie, and I think he's being a little bit slept on. And it may not be a 3-horse race for CB1 between him, Sauce, and Derek Stingley Jr., but he is he's damn good. And I think the two ahead of him were like really amazing cornerback prospects that we don't get too often. Trent McDuffie would be fighting for CB1 in a lot of other classes that we've talked about in the past.
I agree. He will be a future Cardinal or a Bill. It's going to be one or the other because
Bills would be hot. Bills would be
saying, dude.
Oh,
That's what
that'll
I'm
be
saying,
hot.
dude. That's what I'm saying.
I would love that.
Like if we pass on him and he goes to Buffalo, I'll be so happy for him because he's gonna have fun with Trey White.
And those safeties too.
Both those
yeah, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde.
Oh, that secondary would be awesome. I love what Buffalo.
I would put them as the favorite probably to win the Super Bowl if they did that. If not, they might already be the favorite.
They are. They are
but
yeah.
All right, well, there we go. So, up number 2 on our list, Sauce Gardner, the corner from Cincinnati. Before I get to the positives real quick, I just want to say this. Can people stop overrating the touchdown stat? Like, it's actually getting to the point where it's, like, genuinely annoying. Yeah. Like, look at his competition, man. He plays cupcakes. And, yes, he played great against Alabama. I'm not trying to say Sauce is bad. I mean, he's CB2 for crying out loud. Like, he's a top 10 pick, and he should go top 10. But, oh, my goodness, that touchdown stat is so annoying. And just people bring it up and bring it up and bring it up. And it's like, oh, my goodness, look who he played. Like, come on. Like, Derek Stingley Jr. had to play SEC opponents. Like, if he was in the SEC, he would. Or if he was in the ACC as a freshman, he would have won the freaking Heisman. Like, he would have.
What percentage of games does Cincinnati not give up a touchdown in? Like, as a team, like,
yeah,
like realistically, like, probably a good number higher than most.
Yeah, but anyway, let's get back to Sauce on the positive. So this is your prototypical big physical man press corner that's just gonna lock you down. I mean, he's better than Elam, obviously, and I think he's a better athlete than Elam, which shocked me a lot. Didn't fully test at the combine, didn't get an athletic score, but ran the 40, and I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I know it was a lot faster than what we thought.
I'm pulling it up for you right now.
Yeah.
It was 4.41.
That's
really crazy. Good. We were talking like 4.5 or higher for him, and he was. Yeah,
like I was thinking maybe.
Yeah,
I said I could see him go anywhere between 4.3s and 4.6s, and I was,
Okay, well,
that's a pretty big range.
That's a big range, Nick.
Maybe I said 4.5s. I just mean the point. It's a huge range. But what I meant is like a lot of people were saying 4.5s, right? And I thought I could see him running really fast. But,
okay, I said between 4.22 and like 5.12. So
yeah,
like,
I said between
I got in there.
I said between 1 and 12, somewhere around there. So
that was incredible. No, Nick did call it though. I do remember in our scouting report.
He did. I remember.
He said he's fast. He's like, I don't know about this because Donnie and I both, and I think Theo too. Theo too was like, the speed. I'm kind of concerned about. Nick was like, I don't know. So yeah, good on Nick. You did call.
Yeah, good job. Yeah, good job. Round of applause. But back to. So Sauce is also bigger than Kaiir. Probably the biggest corner on this list, actually. What is he, 6'3"?
Yeah, he's 6'3".
6'3", and I believe he's about 195-ish, so he's a little bit skinnier for how big he is. And maybe that'll be a bit of a concern in press coverage. Maybe some bigger physical wide receivers will kind of bully him. But, I mean, either way, man, like, even though I've said stop overrating the touchdown stat, sorry, Nick, I was laughing at what you were doing. Even though I was overrating the
length matters. That's all.
Yeah.
33.5-inch arms, dude. Like that is
edge
freaky.
rusher arms.
Yes, I know. I get that. But still, the size matters. Like it still matters.
Yeah. No, his length is.
His length is absurd, but like his build isn't necessarily like bigger.
No, he's got
he's skinny.
He's
a skinny guy. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. He's a skinny guy. But either way, like even though I kind of crapped on him about his competition, he still was unbelievable against it. And even against the best competition, he shined against Georgia in 2020, arguably his best game. And then against Alabama, I know he didn't necessarily go up against Jamison Williams that much. I believe he only went up against him like 8 coverage snaps. He still played good against them. Like. He was good. He locked down Alabama wide receivers, and Alabama's offense fielded those corners, which is why they never threw the ball. They had more rushing attempts than passing attempts, which I can tell you right now, that is the rarest thing to happen, I feel like, in nowadays football. So I like Sauce. He's CB2, but in my opinion, he's not CB1 on this list.
Yeah, all right. Well, CB1 for us. We've had him unanimously for a while now as our CB1. It's Derek Stingley Jr. A lot of people are falling off on this one. I think he's CB2 for most people. I don't think he's fallen off completely. I think there was a short-term movement that he would...
Unless you're Daniel Jeremiah.
Yeah, unless you're Daniel Jeremiah. I think there was a short-term movement to move him beyond that. And I think some, like... To be completely honest with you, it's like old heads. Like, it's like a lot of these older scouts have him way lower. We haven't seen a Charlie Casserly mock yet, but, like... Kind of like how we had Justin Fields fall to the Steelers last year. Like, I think you're going to see a similar thing with Derek Stingley. Like, he's going to go like 25 to the Bills. He's going to be like, yeah, this guy's got a lot of upside, but he hasn't played good in 3 years. Like, who cares? And we just talked about this earlier with Kaiir Elam. Like, there's some argument to be made that if you had a good season as good as you had with Derek Stingley, that you shouldn't really be trying your hardest, because honestly, that guy probably wanted to go to college as soon as the LSU his freshman year ended. Like, he could have been a top 10 pick right then and there. And
Top
he still might be a top 10 pick, with a, quite frankly, like a good year and then like an above average year after that, but he got injured and it wasn't as good as that one other year. So the question I think we should start posing is, like, let's take away like his all-world season, which is like one of the best corner seasons we've ever seen from any corner in college, and let's take it away and like, what is he as a prospect? And he probably is not a first-round pick if we just take these last 2 years, but I don't think he's like way off the board either. I think he's probably still like a day 2 pick, like
Booth range, I think.
Probably Booth range, right? Like
maybe kind of
that's a great thing you just brought up, because here's the thing: Andrew Booth has like not played excellent football at all by any stretch, but he's an amazing athlete and has all these measurables and pedigree and all this stuff, and people are like jumping on this guy and excited to make him a top 20 pick. And Derek Stingley is like that, except for also had this all-world season, except for just because that's happened so long ago, we're like, oh, I don't know, like so that's actually a really good comparison. So maybe he would be higher than I would think without his first year. But yeah, he's Andrew Booth with an all-world season added 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Also, something you didn't mention, it's his athletic score. I said it on Twitter, and you also said it on Twitter also, Max. I also said it on TikTok. Follow me on TikTok. I'd appreciate that. I'm trying to hit 20K.
Same.
Yeah. For all the Boom
I'm
and
also
Bust
trying to hit
TikToks.
20K. I'm at like almost 4K now. But
yeah. Hey, we're all trying to grow, But no. So Derek Stingley Jr. tested as a 92% athlete, which is ridiculously absurd. But let's take a moment to realize this for a second. He didn't train. He was rehabbing that whole time.
You can tell.
His form on some of those jumps and his
hilarious.
runs were
it was
bad.
Hilarious, dude.
They were horrible. Like, did you see his vertical jump where he only did like one?
He went down once and went back up.
Yeah, he went down once, and I was just like, what are you doing?
Like, even his broad, like, go back and watch his broad. He did the same thing where it's just like, they're like, all right, you can go. And he's like, all right. And he just jumped. And it was like, I almost think, like, if he tried, obviously, if he had better form, like, he would have tested way better. That almost, to me, was a big FU to everyone who was like doubting Derek Stingley Jr.
It was fantastic.
Like, watch this. I'm going to barely freaking try and almost hit 40 inches of my vertical. That's how he tested 92nd percentile.
Without training and without
really he rolled out of bed and ran like a 4.3. And it was like, yeah, this is who I am, man. Which, again, like, I expected like 100th percentile potentially for him. But at the same time, like, he never got to train. He just recovered. Like, literally, LaFranc just recovered from that LaFranc injury. And he could have very easily said, hey, I'm not ready for my pro day. I'm not going to test. You guys see how athletic I am. I'm sorry. But he was like, no, I'm just going to prove to you how crazy of an athlete I am. I'm just going to roll out of bed and do this. And I love that. I love that middle finger.
Literally just woke up, rolled out of bed, just had one sip of coffee, and just kind of did a, all right, let's get this over with.
Exactly. I mean, if you haven't seen the videos yet of his broad and vertical, they are hilarious. Like, it is the worst form. It was the worst form I've ever seen, and he's still incredible.
I'm convinced he actually didn't try. Like, I'm actually convinced. Like, there's a difference between not training and not trying, and I don't think he tried, and he still tested as a 92%
incredible. I think that was a middle finger move, because he has been slept on for far too long.
Yes.
Over under, I think, is 12.5 right now. Now, I think after his pro day, people have come back around on him. He's not going to be CB1.
Which I knew, by the way, was going to happen. At least I did. I'd imagine you guys did.
Yeah, people are going to be like, oh, yeah, Derek Stingley Jr.
No, literally, like, oh, yeah, this guy. I remember when he was good. Yeah,
Another thing I think we should bring up, the effort has been brought up for him. And Donnie made a good point earlier, like, why would you keep trying? He has, like, one of those excuses where, like, LSU was kind of like the Jacksonville Jaguars, but not to the extent. the Ed Orgeron last season was a freaking dumpster fire. And, like, I don't think anyone wanted to play there. So the
Like
fact
Dave Martinez with the Nationals, like, oh, he won a championship, but like everything else has been like,
yeah, exactly. Oh, congratulations. You got one of the greatest teams ever assembled in college football history with Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Joe Burrow, Derek Stingley Jr., and all those guys on defense. And yeah, congratulations, you won a natty with that. And after that, like it was bad. Like it was a dumpster fire at LSU.
I wouldn't try either if I was him. And by the way, another thing I want to bring up, and I brought this up before, his Alabama game, not his freshman year. His freshman year Alabama game was bad, but also the people bringing that up. How would you feel if you were asked, "Hey, go guard Devontae Smith, Jerry Jeudy, who else, Jalen Waddle, and Henry Ruggs without taking a break?" Because that's what he did as a freshman. Like, of course you're gonna struggle. Like, go figure. And then also, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and he wasn't really. And another thing that we should bring up is like he was barely targeted in the games, since his freshman year. Because like they saw Christian Fulton was one of the best returning corners in the country. We're not gonna target him. Let's target this true freshman that they're putting on the outside on an island right now. Like I would target any true freshman just to see if this guy's got the medal. I know he's a top 5 recruit, but still, like I don't know if this guy's ready. And he was ready. And then people were like, all right, let's stop targeting him.
Oh, Max, he was more than ready.
He was the best corner. Like again, I say this all the time. If he had like bad season with injuries, and this year was the amazing season, he would have been the first overall pick. Like, and I get the injuries are a major concern. He's played 10 games out of a possible 23 the past 2 seasons, which is concerning, especially with foot injuries and ankle injuries that he's had. Like that's for a athletic corner, like that could be concerning, but I still want this guy.
It's also more likely to shut it down though when you have a small injury and you know where you are relative to the rest of draft prospects going.
Exactly. And your team is not a national championship contender anymore. And it's like, I don't know. I'm a big believer in Derek Stingley Jr. Obviously, he's a scary prospect in some ways because you could see, these injuries, you just never get over them. But at the same time, like his ceiling is so damn high that if this guy's not a top 10 pick and all of a sudden becomes like a Jalen Ramsey level talent, we're gonna say, why the hell did we not take Derek Stingley Jr. in the top 10?
2 things real quick to comment on that. I mean, like you guys watching might view us as crazy, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there was a legit chance Derek Stingley Jr. could become a top 3 corner of all time. Like there was a legit chance. He has the athleticism and he has the tape to do it. I'm not saying he's going to do it. I don't think he's I don't think he's going to do it. But could he become Jalen?
Possible.
Like he could become Jalen Ramsey.
I don't think there's any other corner in this draft, and I really don't think in last draft that had that potential. I know Max was high on Surtain, but I mean, yes, like
the only reason
he could, yes.
Surtain I just felt was such a sure bet, whereas Stingley I feel a little more sure. That's why I would take Surtain. But like Surtain, I don't think has even the close to the ceiling of Stingley.
The other thing is,
could be unreal.
We had the PFF study. Like corner is the hardest. We looked at draft. It was a study that talked about surplus value contract wise per round per position, and corner is like the position that just no matter what round you're drafting in, you can't guarantee any value out of it because it's just an impossible position to scout.
Yeah.
Like, so you kind of want to aim high because like it doesn't like most corners that don't hit. If they're average, like they're not really helping you a whole lot if you took them in the first round. Like you're either going to hit or you're not. There's really no real in between. Like you need guys who are able to consistently start for you. And if they're not, then you're not playing for you, And so you'd rather have the guy that can, when he hits is like Deion Sanders and the guy who when he hits is going to be, I don't know, whatever JC Horn's going to be.
Yeah, exactly.
The best corner ever. That's what he's saying. But one more thing real quick, and then I'll be done. Just one more thing. His game versus Devontae Smith, when Devontae Smith won the Heisman, was criminally underrated.
Yeah.
He, outside of that one touchdown play, which there was nothing you can do without that.
With the one-handed catch like that.
Okay, well,
you can't beat that. What do you want him to do? Jump 5 feet in the air and then swat it away?
Michael Jordan wasn't impressed.
Go beat LeBron James with Michael Jordan and just go dunk on him and just steal the ball away. I hate to break it to you, that's not how football works.
No, I mean the perfect catch is going to beat the coverage every time. But yeah, we didn't really talk about the negatives because I do think he's going to be something. I just don't like him in slot coverage, zone coverage. Even he's had some issues there. Tackling not too great, and obviously the injuries. But otherwise, man coverage, put him on an island. You don't even need safety help. This guy is going to be athletic enough to guard anyone. He's going to be fantastic in man coverage. His ball skills, we've mentioned that his ball skills are
he
the
could
best
play
I've
wide
ever
receiver if
Yeah,
he
he could
wanted
play
to.
wide receiver.
He could.
He could, and he almost did this year, honestly. And his ball skills, I don't think I've ever. I'm trying to think of a corner right now. Like Aqib Talib had unbelievable ball skills too. Like Derek Stingley Jr.'s ball
Soon
skills,
to be Travis Hunter.
stupid. Yeah, Travis Hunter is awesome too.
So let's get him at 11, Washington, and then we'll also play him at receiver, and we'll just have like the whole thing going on. It's me a
Yeah,
receiver too.
There's your number 2 receiver and your number
Yeah.
1 corner right there. But yeah, we love Derek Stingley Jr. I still would take him in the top 5. Like the Jets at 4, I would love that if Saleh takes him at 4. Probably not going to happen. But that's what we got for our top 10 corners in the 2022 NFL draft. So please subscribe to the channel. We're getting very, very close to the draft. Hopefully we solidify our plans for the actual draft very soon. Like the video, turn on notifications, follow our TikTok, Twitter, Instagram at Boom or Bust Draft. Also, a thing that we're probably doing on soon, we're going to ask this question and make a video off of it. Donnie had this idea. Give us your hot takes for the 2022 NFL draft.
Message us in the comments. Also, any of us on Twitter, and also I'll be making a TikTok about it probably sometime either this weekend or maybe next week. Like, just give us your draft takes. Like, we'll love to react to that.
No, I
love it.
We don't interact with you guys enough, I don't think. So, like, unless we're like replying in comment sections, but we want to like actually talk to you guys in a video. So, give us your best draft takes in the comments, and we're hopefully doing a video.
Let's get them.
It'll be a lot of fun. So that's what we got for top 10 corners for Nick Merriam and Donny Clemons. I'm Max Chadwick. Have a great night.